Hello, welcome. Okay, so this is the first in a series of videos I'm going to do as a follow-up to my Lightroom 101 and 102 classes, and for my private students who I work with individually. And these will serve as just a reference, so you can go to the various functions that I'm going to cover on these videos and just get a quick little tutorial with me sitting down here in the corner to help you through if you have forgotten some items or you just want to double check your procedures. So the first one we're going to do, obviously, is going to be importing. So we're going to just import some images from our CF card or our SD card in our camera into our computer and put them on our hard drives and have them be part of the Lightroom catalog so we can work with them in the future. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my SD card or CF card and put it in a card reader that's attached to my computer and plug it in. Normally, when the Lightroom sees a new card, and it did it this time, great, it will open up the import dialog box. I'm going to cancel out of this just temporarily, just to show you what happens if Lightroom decides it's not going to open up the import dialog box. So if I've plugged in a card, okay, and I'm just sitting here in the library module and nothing's happening, all I need to do is go down to the far bottom left-hand corner down here where it says import and click on it, and that will open up the import dialog box for you. By default, Lightroom is going to figure out what's plugged in and ready to go, and right now it's seeing EOS Digital, which is my CF card. Yours may have a slightly different name depending on the camera type you have, but usually it's the first thing that's showing up here, and it will show all the images. Now you'll notice on mine that they're all grayed out at the moment, and that is because I've actually imported these images before. Just temporarily, I'm going to go over here to the right-hand column and uncheck this "Don't import suspected duplicates." Having that checked prevents you from bringing in duplicated images, but just for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to uncheck that temporarily. Okay, so in the left-hand column, in the import dialog box here, is your source. Where are the images coming from? Okay, they could be coming from your computer, or they could be coming from an external drive you have plugged in, but for most cases it's going to be from your camera or the card via the card reader. So we're going to select that card reader, and you'll notice that all the images are showing up, which is great. So this is our source. In the middle across the top here is what we want to do with it. Do we want to copy as a DNG? We went over that in class, and for the time being we're going to say no, unless this is part of your process already. Just ignore that. It's got copy, move, or add. When you're taking something from a CF card or an SD card or your camera, obviously you want to copy those images from that card and put them on your hard drive or your external drive, wherever your images happen to live. So 99 times out of 100, copy is going to be the right option, and more often than not, Lightroom will default to copy, but just pay attention to that. Where it's coming from, what do I want to do? So in this case, we're going to say copy. And you'll notice that when I hover over copy, the little message underneath says, copy photos to a new location and add to the catalog. And that's exactly what I want to do. So copy is what I want. Then we get over to the right-hand column, and that's where it's going to go. Don't worry about this top column heading right here. All this is telling you is what you've selected down below. So I'll show you how that works in just a minute. And we'll just go over these little settings at the top here just one more time. Once you have these set, you don't have to reset them every time unless you're going to be doing something different. But I want to make sure yours are reading the same way mine are. I'm going to move me over slightly over here so you can see what I'm doing next. Okay, so up in the top part of the right-hand column now is file handling. You want to have this build preview set to embedded and sidecar. There's some other options here, and it really doesn't matter what those options say. Just trust me on the fact that you want embedded in sidecar. So just go ahead and click on that. We're not going to deal with smart previews, so let's leave that off. That will be for a video way later, and most of the time, most of us don't need that. So leave that unchecked, build smart previews unchecked. And as I mentioned before, normally you'd want to have this don't import suspected duplicates checked and leave it checked all the time. I just unchecked it temporarily just so I can show you this demo. Make a second copy too, as we discussed in class. This is if you want to make a second copy of just your raw images as they come off the card to another external drive. And this can be useful if you're traveling. We'll talk about that a little bit more with backups. But for right now, you could probably leave that off, and that's fine. Add to collection, we'll also leave that off for the time being. So really all you have to worry about in file handling is build previews embedded in Sidecar. The next one is file renaming, and as we mentioned in class, I don't rename my files until I export them, if then. So I'm going to leave file renaming completely blank, and I collapse it. And to be honest with you, on my system at home, I actually have that deleted, so I don't even need to see it. Apply during import. If we wanted some specific develop settings applied on all our images, this is where we do it. But for the sake of this video, let's just say none. The next section is metadata, and in class I showed you how to set metadata, which is going to be your copyright and your contact information and various other things. So if you have done that, this is a good place to set that metadata, and once you have set it, you can forget it. Okay, set it and forget it. We'll go over how to do that in another video, but if you have your copyright information on there, go ahead from the drop-down box, select it, and then that will apply to all images you bring in from now in the future. Keywords. As I mentioned in class, I try and make it a point to add at least 1 or 2 keywords on import. It's very easy to get carried away and excited about your images once they're in. That you don't add all the necessary keywords, but I want to make sure that I've got at least 1 or 2 keywords on here, that if I never add another one again, at least I know where I was and what these are pictures of. In this particular case, I was at Arizona, so I'm actually going to type that in, Arizona, okay? And then if I want to add other ones, I could do a comma to separate them. And I could do another one, which could be, let's say, it's not exactly Flagstaff, but it's close enough. It's actually in Williams. And because it's somewhat of a zoo, even though it's not, but I'm going to call it zoo, because then at least I know that that's captured wildlife, and captive wildlife, sorry, and not just a wild bear that I saw out in the woods. Okay, so I do at least that. Okay, so maybe there's a couple of images out there that, in fact, I'm pretty sure there are. There's a couple of there from Williams itself, so I've got pictures of the train and pictures of something else. But pretty much all of these images are Arizona, taken by Flagstaff, taken in the zoo. So at least I've got that, and that's good. So I'm going to add those. The next thing on here, you've got your destination, which means where do you want these images to go? We have got our source, where they're coming from. We've said what we want to do. We want to copy them, but where do we want to copy them to? Okay, and this is where most of the mistakes can take place, so just pay attention to what's happening here. If you have your images on an external drive, which is probably a good idea, especially if you're on a laptop, you're going to come over here and select your drive, whatever drive it happens to be, okay? And the images folder that you created or we created in class. So in this particular case, I have mine divided up slightly differently, but I have an external drive that I call Master 1, and in there are my images, and that's A through G images. This may be slightly different to the way you have it. You'll probably have all yours on one drive, and that's fine. And I now have the spinning beach ball of death, so I might skip through that. But anyway, I'm selecting A through G images, okay, as to where I want these to go, because these are Arizona, and Arizona is A through G. So A through G images is where I want them to go. All right. And then inside A through G images, I want to create a brand new folder called Arizona. So with this highlighted, I can come up here to where it says destination and into subfolder. And that's where I'm going to say Arizona. Arizona. And if I go there numerous times, which I do, I might want to append the end of this with the date. So let's just make up one. We'll say this was 0619. The reason I put the date at the end is because I can keep this in alphabetical order, and it's just so much easier to see. If I had the date before it, it would be very hard for me to find all my folders. So inside images A through G, I have created, or I will be creating, a new folder called Arizona. The next part is very important, okay? Right now it says organized by date. I don't want to organize those by date. So let's say I went on a trip to Europe and every day I went to a different location, a different place. If I organize those by date, Lightroom would create subfolders inside subfolders that could go on forever. As we mentioned in class, it's very easy to find the date which you took an image and group things by the date that you took an image. You don't need to separate them into subfolders here. So what I would suggest and almost demand is that here you, instead of saying by date, you hit the drop down box and say into one folder. Okay, so it's going to put all these images into a little subfolder inside A through G called Arizona 0619. Okay, and it's also going to attach these keywords to it, which is exactly what we want it to do. So as a point of reference, again, where it's coming from on the left hand side, what do I want to do? Copy to a new location and add to the catalog. And where do I want it to go? Now you'll notice that because I've added or selected this A through G images, and I've selected a new subfolder called Arizona, up in the top right hand corner now, it tells me that that's where it's going to go. It's going to go into Master 1, which is the name of my drive, images, A through G images. And all this does here is reflect what I've selected down here. So this is just a cross-reference for you to make sure that everything's going exactly where you want it to go. So we've created a brand new folder on our computer, on our drive, in the selected area, and this is where all these images are going to go with these keywords and with my copyright metadata information. Then all I have to do is go down here to the bottom right-hand corner and then click Import. And this will actually import the images. Now you'll notice that we're back in the library module. I have a little dialog box up here that lets me know that they are actually copying and importing the images, and I will see them all appear here. You'll notice that right under the navigator panel here, if I scroll up, this is the information about the catalog, all my photographs and various other things. And you'll notice that it says current import. So if I'm in here right now, it will show me what it is importing currently. And right now it's only imported 8 of them. So it's going to take a little while. But this will give me the progress bar up here of where they're going. Now it did create for me a folder down here called Arizona. Okay. And Arizona 0619. And it's down here. And you can also see that the images are coming in there as well. So if I scroll down here, remember I created the folder inside Master 1 A through G images, and I created a new folder called Arizona 0619. And if I click on it, there it is. So it appears in the current import, which is handy, but it's actually showing them to you in the folder that you created, Arizona 0619. And here's the images. Here's the import dialog box as it's coming in. Now, I can wait for this to finish importing and create all the previews, or I can just start right away, maybe culling out the ones that I don't want, maybe looking at the ones that I do like, and we'll get into that part of the workflow in the next video. But basically, this is how you import.